and welcome, fam, to the Dr. Mumbi Show. My name is Dr. Mumbi Saraki. How you doing? How's everything going? I really do pray that you are well in all your ways, and that you are moving. You are using this time to truly come into your power. There is a prophetic update I'll do because some of our brothers and sisters had contacted me from the Caribbean, and they said, there was a weekend where everyone felt super tired, and they were wondering if something had been sprayed in the air. But after praying about it, I do feel there's another angle to that, so I will definitely be doing a prophetic update on that this week. Now, don't forget to subscribe to both the Dr. Mumbi Show and Dr. Mumbi Live if you haven't already. Thanks to everyone that supports us on our Patreon account. We do release stories earlier there, and some of the stories that YouTube is blocking, we do put up there. We had done a story on the Kenyan president being unable to visit the Vatican. YouTube took it out. We were like, okay. So we went back and looked at that story. Like, what is so significant about that? But we'll definitely be uploading that episode on our Patreon account. Now, it's business as usual for the European Union. And whenever I read such stories, I always wonder, Africa, the great kings and queens, emperors and empresses, how did we get into this situation? And what has happened? Wow, the wind just came through in a big way. The spirit of the ancestors, as some would say. And what has happened is that Botswana, Ghana, Mauritius, and Zimbabwe have actually been added to the European Union blacklist for, money laundering and terrorism financing. I was like, Ghana? Sometimes I feel they just put these things in a hat and then they just pick four countries and they're like, okay, these are the four African countries. And, the list of countries basically that pose a financial risk to the European Union due to anti-money, due to money laundering and terrorism financing shortfalls. So they usually say that these countries have been found wanting in their legislation, etc., etc. And what this basically means for these countries is you're basically blacklisted from doing businesses in Europe, or it's more difficult for companies to do business with your European companies. And because I think over 80%, if I almost want to say 99% of African nations, the main people they do business with is either their former colonizer or China. So, when these kind of legislations come up, it just means that some of these countries will now move to doing, but it's going to be tricky business with China in this day and age. Anyway, but what it usually means is that banks and other financial tax firms are obligated to inspect more closely their clients who have any dealings with these countries on the list, according to the European Union law. And, companies in this country are also prohibited from receiving new funding from the European Union. So they want to say it's because we don't have the right legislation in place, etc., etc. But this causes serious economic damage to some of these countries, or it pulls them back economically. And these are the kind of puppet strings that a lot of our leaders are on. It's like, if you don't I don't know what has happened with these countries. I don't know if Botswana and Ghana and Mauritius, I've heard Mauritius and money laundering before, but Ghana, I was a bit surprised. Botswana is like one of the, the countries that's doing the best in Africa. So that also surprised me. Zimbabwe, you already know. They've said they will crush Zimbabwe no matter what. And if Zimbabwe doesn't come up with a new financial policy of doing more business with its neighbors, and even trading more with with neighbors and maybe global Black Africa, they'll never come out of it. And that's why I always find it to be such a joke when I see Mnangagwa busy, going to Davos and to different, European meetings and telling the Europeans they're open for business. It's like, you didn't get the memo. They ain't gonna do business with you until you submit. That's why I even saw the other day that, the Zimbabweans were planning on giving land back to the Mzungu. I was like, wow. Like 100 steps forward and then 1,000 back. But those are stories for other days. So, I really feel, you see, Africa, we're always being put on some blacklist or some don't work with us list, and it's just like this manipulation of our countries. This year it's Botswana, Ghana, Mauritius, and Zimbabwe. Uganda, by the way, they've already been on that list. And there's about 22 countries across the world that are on this list, 5 of them being from Africa. There are also some from the Caribbean. I'll be sharing that story because the Caribbean was not happy when their nations were, the whole Caribbean Authority, I think, Community of Nations, whatever they call themselves, CARICOM or something, they actually came together and, released a complaint to the European Union. But Africa, why don't we have our own lists? Why don't we have our own list of, like, for example, the people who are, mistreating, where there's black crime, where there's racism? Why can't we put those people on a blacklist and encourage African countries not to do business with them? You know why? Because we don't have the power to do that. But that's where our future generations need to be thinking, and us, because these current leaders, man, the chapter has also ended. We're in a new breed. We're a new breed of Africans. We're in a new generation for Africa, so many things are going to be changing, including the leadership and how leadership on Africa is done. We're going to need serious warriors to become president, but we're also going to need serious spiritual, heavyweights to support these presidents to do some of these things, because the world is spiritual, fam. What has happened to Africa is spiritual. And as long as we continue trying to catch up materially or physically, we're always going to be playing catch up. And we are going to see a day where Africa comes up with lists. These people cannot come to, the Germans or the French cannot come because of A, B, C, D, because they haven't apologized for slavery, because they still have, there should even be a blacklist of all the people who still have our artifacts. But Africa, we don't have that power because we're not united and we don't have the right thinking leaders in positions of power. But this is where we will be moving to. Let's flip the script. The last shall be last. But if we still have presidents who think they're last, then we'll lose that. The last shall be first. I don't know if I said the last shall be last. Yeah, with the current presidency, yeah. But if we have anything to do with it, the last shall be first, and we'll have the right people in Africa to take us to this glorious new dawn. Until next time. Mwah.